Good evening. Welcome to the Stoner Mesa community meeting here at the West Fork Fire Department. My name is Kevin Sweeney. I am one of the public information officers working on the fire with the Rocky Mountain Complex Incident Management Team 1, or if it's faster and easier, CIMT1. So if you see that acronym, that's for. Thank you guys for having us here tonight. We really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, and we hope to provide you a lot of valuable information. And that's the purpose for tonight. We have fire managers, we have local officials who are going to provide updates on the fire activity and the suppression activity occurring here on the Stoner Mesa fire with the San Juan National Forest. If I could have the agenda pop up, that would be great. So tonight, and if the screen's hard to see, we'll be posting this back up again for you guys, but this is a pretty quick overview of what we'll be doing tonight. We'll hear opening comments from Nick Musto. Nick, if you wouldn't mind raising your hand for folks. We'll have a current situation from our operations section chief, Joel Peters. We'll have an air quality update from our air resource advisor. We will have a fire behavior discussion with Brandon Fisher, our fire behavior analyst. And then we'll have a discussion about wildland fire readiness with Dolores County Emergency Manager Keith Kiesling. And then finally, closing comments from our incident commander, Justin Conrad. Before I introduce our first speaker, I'm going to ask that you hold your questions until the end of the formal presentation. There's a good chance that your question is going to be answered as we go through the evening. And if you do have questions afterwards, we have maps set up throughout the room. We'll have specialists, some of the operations folks, some of the agency administrators standing by these maps to answer those questions one-on-one with you guys. We'll stay here until the last question's asked. So if you have a question and you want to ask somebody face-to-face, we're here for you, and we'll stick around until those are all answered for you. We do want to thank you guys for attending tonight, and also for our audience viewing online. If you have questions, please feel free to send those via private messenger. We have staff available to answer those. And if we experience any technical issues, as I'm sure wouldn't happen here since there's such great signal, but if for some reason the signal drops out, we are recording this presentation and we'll be putting it up online shortly after the meeting tonight. So with that, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Nick Musto from San Juan National Forest. Nick.
Good evening, everyone. Nick Musto, District Ranger for the Dolores Ranger District. I want to say thanks to the West Fork Fire Department for hosting us, and thank you all for coming out this evening. Certainly appreciate your time. We have operations coming next, so I don't want to ruin their thunder, but I'd say that folks on the ground have made a lot of good progress over the last few days, certainly taking advantage of kind of the moderating weather conditions we've seen, the reduced kind of temperature we've seen out in the fire with the cloud cover, the more consistent wind direction we've seen, as well as the reduced wind speed over the first few days have all been a huge help for our firefighters on the ground. That said, I think it's really important that we don't get complacent out there. There's certainly still risks with this fire. There's kind of chances that the fuel alignment and wind direction of the given day might produce other kind of large fire growth days. So I want folks to understand that that risk is still out there. And kind of on that note, what I think is really important is sign up to get our fire information. We have plenty of people here that can kind of help direct you to where to go to find that information, give you kind of day-to-day updates of what we're doing on the fire and kind of what we expected to do a given day. Also, we've got Keith here with the Dolores County. I think it's really important for folks to sign up for those emergency management notifications, kind of keeping aware of what's going on. And then I bring this up because I'd feel irresponsible if I didn't, but I'd say that I think having a plan for what an evacuation might mean for you, even if you never have to use that plan, is smart as we live in kind of this fire season environment that we have here. I'd like to say that, you know, all the folks that we have in this fire from across the country, we also have local resources. The San Juan Hotshots are on this, so folks that know this piece of ground certainly gives me a bit of comfort. But I just ask for folks to understand that, you know, those are folks setting their life aside and taking on risk for our community and to protect life and property, which really is the most important thing on this incident. So I just want to say thank you also for the community for supporting our firefighters. That's felt, that's noticed, that's appreciated, and just feel grateful for this opportunity to serve this community. Thank you. And I'll pass it to operations.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Joel Peters. I'm one of the operations sections chiefs with Rocky Mountain Team 1. So we'll kind of describe some things that are going on in the field. I know these maps are tough, right? You're sitting in the room online, particularly the folks in person. I'll be here afterwards to answer some of those real specific questions on pieces of the landscape, things like that out there that we can address. But first thing I like to start with is kind of outside in. So on our maps, we've got a lot of stuff on these things. Some of them describe the area. So we have branches. What does that mean? Some folks are in tune with this. Not everyone is. So we like to talk about it a little bit. So we break our fires into branches. So we're combining portions of the fire and break them down into little pieces for span of control, knowing where all the fire resources are at all times. So this particular fire, we have 2 branches. Branch 2 to the north, branch 5 down to the south. So it's kind of split in half. That's our first break up of the fire. Then surrounding the fire, we have it broken up into individual divisions with individual division supervisors that manage that specific, piece of the landscape. So if you look on the maps, there's, look like little parentheses on there, eyebrows, whatever you'd like to call them, that breaks down those individual sections of the fire. So when I go through some of this, that's going to be how I speak to it. I will talk of divisions and maybe I'll throw in some road numbers or some local landmarks to help describe that. So that's kind of how we break those things up for folks that are not familiar with that. I don't know, is this the best one? Folks see best if I use the TV, or what works best? TV? Okay, I'll slide over to the side here a little bit so I'm not blocking everything. So like I said, it's small, hard to see, but we'll get to it. So we'll start up in branch 2, kind of the northern portion of the fire is how it's divided. So the reason it is such is Stoner Creek. It's a very deep canyon, very difficult to cross, as probably some folks that live around here know. So that's why it's broken up that way. So we can separate ground that we can't just easily transfer across with equipment, engines, hand crews, things like that. So we'll start up in branch 2. We'll start down here in Division X-ray. So Division X-ray is basically from the highway junctions down here all the way up to about this portion of the fire right there. So their primary mission in there on the fire line is they have the very edge of the fire here, creating an indirect line along Stoner Creek. So we already talked about how steep and rugged that is. And I mean, you can look right up the thing. It's quite steep and rugged. So that individual division right now, what they're working on, they have an indirect line utilizing the Stoner Creek Trail. So it's up on the Mesa Flat in the Aspen. It's an area that we can work in instead of being in that steep canyon. So they're generating an indirect line that's going to come all the way down the mesa and tie down in to the corner here near Stoner. So that's X-Ray's overall plan there. We'll move up over into Division Alpha in branch 2. Here's that division break showing near this part of fire. It's probably hard to see. There's a bunch of little X's on there. That's dozer line. So they've secured with dozer line, existing roads, the Stoner Trail itself that wraps through there. Up on that mesa, it's flatter, easier country. So they've been able to secure from there all the way back to approximately here before some of these other trail systems peel off. So most of that is a direct attack in there. They're right on the fire's edge. In some of the areas where they couldn't quite get on the fire's edge, they maybe went a little bit indirect and utilized some strategic firing operations to take that unburned fuel out. So they've been very successful through that section. Moving up into the Division Echo. So Division Echo, the mark's out here, but in reality, it's this piece of the fire ground moving all the way out towards Dutton. So in Division Echo, we spent a ton of time in there. Aviation, looking from the sky, boots on the ground, people individually scouting, numerous portions through here, the creek bottom itself, out near here on the end or the head of the fire. For those that have been in there, you already know what I'm talking about, but it's very steep, full of numerous dead trees. There's rock cliffs in there with loose rock. It's not a good place to put folks. I personally walked down in there. So this is one of our hinge pins on this fire in here. Is it's not a safe place to put folks. We looked at it from 7 different ways, and it's just not a good place for firefighters. So that being said, what can we do about that? So this corner of the fire over here, we are able to secure some of that. So there's a lot of spots right here. So we are able to get in there, some old skid roads from some past logging, and we can do some with some of that. A bunch of this other country down here, if we had a firefighter fall off one of those cliffs, get hit by a tree, get hit by a rolling rock, any of those kinds of things, the only way they're going to get out is from a helicopter with a long line, clip them in, and haul them out. Not something we want to rely on. It's a bad place for them to be. So we looked at it really hard. We spent days looking at this and how we could get in there. Hotshot crews, division soups, a lot of folks looking at that stuff. So what are we going to do? So we've got some other plans that we looked at. So what can we do here along the trail? So that trail rides on a pretty well-defined line of heavy conifer to the north, lots of dead trees, super thick, super steep, also a place we can't put folks. If we wanted to do something in there, we would utilize what we call a heavy equipment task force, which is numerous pieces of heavy equipment, feller bunchers, hot saws, forwarders, shovels, all sorts of stuff to get those trees out of the way. It's very steep off the backside, very steep down into Stoner Creek. They would, by estimates of folks that we have that are experts with heavy equipment, that are involved in the logging industry, things like that, the amount of time commitment to get that done was a long ways out. And any of the fire predictive models that were run in this basin here for movement of fire to the north, we would not have even close to enough time to get that done. And then we'd have folks out in front of the fire trying to put in fire line in a piece of country that's not very conducive to being successful. The probability of success of that line would be flat out low. So what's the next option? So the next option is maybe not the most colorful and prettiest choice, but it is to move back to the corridor, to the highway, to the river, to areas that we can be effective with the tools that we have. So folks that do live along the corridor, you've probably seen a lot of engines running around, folks in there assessing structures, logging them, and getting a the probability of this fire to move in that direction. That's how kind of those pieces were put together. So that's kind of where we're with this division Echo Country. You know, they look deep into past historical fires in this area. You know, specific weather events, specific fires, and how much those would move from this time period on based on expected weather, things like that. And it just does not show that high probability of that going that direction. So basically, you know, comes down to firefighter safety and probability of success on how that was determined. So we'll keep moving around the fire. We'll move into branch 5 now onto the south side. So into Division Tango, which is roughly right up in here on the fire's edge, about where my finger is. So from here all the way back to where I just spoke of, you know, on that bench before it dives into the creek, where they are being successful on picking up those spots and moving back towards the west. You know, this is predominantly has been direct attack through there. Utilizing some existing roads where needed, where the black has come near those roads. Also taking dozers and coming in as direct as possible for those that haven't been on that mesa. Once again, flat, favorable ground, existing timber cuts from the past, things like that that are areas that we can be, you know, very successful, you know, high probability of success with the tools that we have. So they've been working that stuff extensively over the I mean, basically after this fire made its its big moves, that's one of the first places they took hold and started getting some stuff done out there. So that section, basically from my finger back, is looking really good at this point. Like I said, where it wasn't direct, they had a few pockets. So they are doing some smaller strategic firing operations to clean that stuff up, maybe to a dozer line, an existing skid road, things like that. Moving close right over here to what is the Division Whiskey, there is a pretty good size unburned pocket there that you can probably even see from there. And so in there, they utilize an existing road, reduce some of the ladder fuels, which are the fuels that can carry that fire up into the crown and throw spot fires over our lines, things like that. They reduce some of those, reduce the snags. And starting today, they did a little bit of a burnout operation in there to once again bring that fire to the road where we can be successful. We're going to hopefully tomorrow close that off and get that piece done. Moving down into Division Whiskey. So that would be basically from here, over to here in that piece. So in there, once again, we're getting back to Stoner Creek on this edge here. Very steep, rugged, lots of conifer, dead standing timber, dead and down. Not a great place to put folks or be successful with the fire's edge. So what they've done in here, it's once again hard to see. There is a check line in there utilizing existing roads and a little bit of dozer line to prevent some of that fire spread kind of to the south. And making any kind of pushes towards the south. So that's kind of what they're doing up by the fire specifically. They've got it's the 201 road, Forest Road 201, that leads all the way down to Loading Pen Trail. So currently they're utilizing that as an indirect tactic as well. That is a heavy equipment operation as well. They've got 2 timber task forces in there. Some of the same equipment I mentioned previously to the north that would have been required, we're utilizing it in there. Because once again, limited resources. If we had wanted to do that, we would have had to order or take these from there to make that happen. But so they're working on all that. It's essentially a logging operation is what they're doing. Lots of dead trees don't work well for folks on the ground. So they're utilizing heavy equipment, reducing that exposure to firefighters, and creating an indirect line that's going to come all the way down to the main highway. Another thing that's occurring in the Stoner Creek Canyon, a lot of times there's questions on aviation. Like, what are we doing with that? So one of the things that's going on in here, we've been utilizing heavy helicopter. We only have one, but we've been using it. We're trying to get another one to check some of this fire spread that's coming down Stoner Creek. So as you move from the Mesa down into Stoner Creek, it's different conditions. It's drier, it's steeper, and there's a fair amount of heavy dead and down in there as well. So that's kind of one of the primary places we're utilizing aviation. I know a possible question that's floating around there is, why aren't we seeing any of the big retardant planes? So early on in the fire, I'm sure they were used. I wasn't here during the initial attack. But one of the main reasons we're not using the retardant is it's not effective in the timber type that's up here. So it's primarily carrying in that heavy dead and down and conifer. So the taller trees, the thicker canopy. So what happens in that fuel type, if you fly a retardant on it, it does not penetrate all the way to the bottom and is not effective. So there's some places on the fire that, as we move down the slope further, where if we see that opportunity, we will absolutely order it. But it's not an effective tactic in that fuel type. It pushes some of that exposure to those pilots as well. If it's not effective, why would we push that exposure to those pilots if we can't get anything out of it? If we can't get people on the ground behind it, let's say it's a fuel type that we can work in, and if we're not going to get firefighters in behind there, it's a retardant, not a suppressant, right? It doesn't put out the fire. For lack of a better word, either Mother Nature with heavy rain and snow or people put the fire out. And so if we're utilizing that retardant and it's staying in the canopy, not getting to the ground, and or we're not putting folks in there to back it up, it's a retardant. It only helps. It'll chew through it. It'll burn through it. It will spot over it. And it's just not effective. And sometimes it actually hampers suppression efforts because it's wet, it's slippery, And sometimes it's just not the right thing to use at that time. If it's a lighter fuel type, not a heavy canopy, it can absolutely be effective. We just have not found places in here where it will be effective. It's not spreading in some of those open areas right now. It's not carrying in those aspen stands that are a little more thin and open. So it's primarily just based on effectiveness, and it's also extremely expensive. So why would we do something that's not effective, transfers risk to someone flying aviation, and costs a lot of money? And it kind of, all the things don't add up. If they're effective, absolutely. If we find those areas that we can use it, we will. And so primarily our aviation has been helicopter, rotor wing stuff that we've been working this to keep that from moving south. If any of the stuff up here with aviation were to kind of pick up in activity, we're going to keep eyes on that stuff. We don't want it to pick up and move. If we can prevent it, we'll utilize the aviation in there as well to help stop some of that stuff. So moving back further down, we also have a structure group that's all the way up past Rico as well, for folks that maybe live up in that part of the country over there, doing some of the similar tactics on this other side of, assessing structures, what do we need to mitigate potential impact for fire, is there ladder fuels by the house, wood piles, things like that. So there's been a lot of activity on that side of the fire as well, along the highway corridor, because that's where the values at risk are out on the landscape. So like I said, hopefully that's a decent overview. I will definitely be around afterwards for very poignant questions of why is this that way or why isn't it this way, or any specifics on portions of the fire. So thank you.
Thank you, Joel. Next up is our Air Resource Advisor, Mark Struthworth. He's going to talk about something you guys care very much about, smoke.
Good evening. I'm an Air Resource Advisor, ARA, but this evening was almost AARA, almost absent Resource Advisor. I just got here this moment. I went to Rico for some reason. So hopefully, are there many people here from Rico? Are there any people? Just a couple? Okay. So let me just start out. I'm air quality person, so a lot of times I get to a fire and they see Air Resource Advisor and they want to send me to the helipad, but I'm here for air pollution. And there's many of us that now go out as air pollution advisors. There's probably 40 or 50 of us, and we're out there to support the community as well as the health of the firefighters. And I want to explain to you how we go about that. We have a lot of models to look at. We also look at the weather. We also pay attention to what the fire behavior analyst is telling us about the fuels that they may encounter. And all that goes into our decision making as far as how much smoke might be produced. And then we look at the winds aloft. Is that going to be taking it away, or is the winds going to subside? And then at nighttime, we typically have that smoke coming down into the valley. So I want to take a look. I have a satellite imagery of the hotspots. There it is right now. Perhaps if I stand over here, we're up at somewhere in here, I think. Here's where the West Dolores campground is. We just put up a monitor there so that we can see what the smoke is doing in the valley. Also, we have troops out in the field camping there. And then we also just set up a air monitor over on this side, just south of Rico, so that we can get real-time information about how much smoke they might be inhaling while they're sleeping, because we know they're out in the field all day long inhaling smoke, and we want to make sure that they do have 8 hours at least of some clean air that they can breathe. And so far, so good. So there's three basic types of smoke I want to address. There's the really hot driven smoke. It has a lot of energy. The fire gets underneath it, lifts the smoke, goes up thousands of feet, and then it usually gets caught in the upper wind speed or upper winds and gets drifted downwind several hundred miles. We encountered that here on Sunday or Monday, I believe, from the fire up in northwest Colorado, the Leaf Fire. We got a lot of the smoke from them. Thank you very much. just to add to the smoke that this particular fire was adding. Then there's a secondary smoke. It's not as energetic, but it still has the ability to lift a little bit from the heat that's generating it. So it goes up several hundred feet, perhaps maybe 1,000 feet, but then it cools off and then gets down into the valley. So we encountered that yesterday with westerly winds coming across this area that has a lot of heat. The yellow is scattered heat. The red is spots or isolated heat sources. So with the west wind that we had yesterday, it was just enough energy to lift it up over the 11,000 foot ridge in here, Anchor Mountain, and drift down into Rico. So they had several hours of moderate and actually I think 2 or 3 hours of unhealthy for sensitive groups. I call that lazy smoke because it doesn't go that far, it doesn't have the energy, but still has some boost to it. Then there's a third kind of smoke, which basically occurs at night. It's from the smoldering fuels that we have out there. I like to call that the couch potato smoke because it takes the path of least resistance. It just wants to sit there and goes down the terrain and funnels and gets most concentrated in your drainages. So in this particular case, most of the smoke is up here on the Mesa. And then at nighttime, as we get the inversion set up, all the smoke gets trapped and drifts southwestward down along the Mesa, and then it finds its best opportunities to fill into the drainages, in which case this would be the Dolores River. Fortunately, there is just a little bit of a ridge in here, except for a couple of these spots, so most of the smoke does not make it over this little ridge impacting the West Dolores River, but at times it does, but it's not severe. The main focus has been coming down the river, going down into Dolores, and then spreading out into Cortez. Some of that couch potato smoke, if you want to call it that, gets energy once in a while, and some kind of mixing allows it to lift just a little bit. And so in the last few nights, we've been seeing smoke make it out of the valley and go towards Dove Creek, I want to call it. Okay, thank you. So all the way from Cortez over to Dove Creek, we've been seeing a lot of unhealthy for sensitive groups, and even a few hours of unhealthy because that air spills out at nighttime and it goes out into the plains there, and a lot of people are encountering unhealthy conditions. Fortunately, it doesn't last that long. You can almost set your watch to the time change of when the smoke lifts out of Dolores. The last 2 mornings is within like 10 minutes. At 11 o'clock in the morning, it's unhealthy, and by at 10 o'clock it's unhealthy, and then by 11 o'clock it's good. It just drops off, and within 10 minutes you see it just goes. Why would that occur? That's because our winds shift. As the heating of the day goes on, we get the winds turning around to become upslope. As that takes all the smoke that's been drifting down towards the southwest and reverses it and goes back up north. So that's kind of the general trend that we see daily. Nighttime winds taking the smoke down valley, down slope, and then during the day, if there's a little bit of lifting with the heat, which we do get, then whatever the transport winds are, whichever low level, 1,000 to 5,000 feet, we'll take that wind typically towards the east. Over the next several days, we're going to see that transport wind become a little bit more northwesterly. So during the daytime hours, we're going to see some of that smoke coming down into the corridor of 145. So I'd like to keep an eyes up on what's going to be happening at the camp at 145 there, because during the course of the day, some of that so-called lazy smoke that doesn't go very far will get into here. And today, just now, since I went to Rico, I also have a monitor that I have on the vehicle, so I can constantly be measuring the conditions as I'm driving. And coming down through Rico down to right about the camp, I did encounter moderate conditions. But because nighttime is coming, we have cleaner air to the north and coming down, and so they should be improving here in the next few hours. So overall, probably what you've heard already, this is a long fire. We're going to be continuing to see smoke being generated every day. And the question is, which way will it go? We know at nighttime it's going to be coming down into the valleys, but during the day, a little shift here and there. A few days ago, just a little bit of a southwest wind took some smoke into Silverton, and yesterday was Rico. Tomorrow we're looking for a little bit more northwesterly flow, so they may not even see anything more than moderate for a period of time. So if you have any questions, I have a handout. It looks like this. These are all sites that you can go to get information as far as what you can do for yourself to protect yourself from hazardous conditions. There's also the top one. I think you'll get a real lifetime view of where the smoke is going. There's a camera up on Benchmark Lookout, and it looks east, and every day you can see it's a video camera, and so you can see like an hour and a half, hour 45 minutes of how that smoke is happening, going up, going sideways, going down. So just for your own personal information, that's helpful. And then there's a whole bunch of other resources there, how to build a clean air fan in your house. And that's very easy to do. You just take a box fan and get a MERV 13. It's one of the highest levels of filters, and that will trap those particulates that are 2.5 and smaller. Those are the dangerous ones. And so you can make your own little safe spot in your house if conditions get worse. I'll be standing over here if you have any questions. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mark. I'm going to hold you up just for a second because I know that you had a video of that Benchmark camera. And so if you wanted to take just an extra minute and walk folks through, I'm going to hand the microphone back to you if you want to let them know what they're looking at.
Thank you for reminding me about that. So here is the inversion, the smoke trapped in the valleys. And as we see, all of a sudden there is some activity that was a surprise this morning. There was enough energy to punch through the inversion, and we'll do this time lapse once again. So this is at 5:58 this morning. You can barely see it, but you see all the smoke hanging in the valleys. That's because of nighttime inversion. But there is some little plumes of smoke here. And then the biggest one is, you can see it over here, developing. And so that's, there's a lot of good information. And when we can't get our eyes on it, there's cameras out there to help us out. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mark. And we know you guys have lots of questions about smoke. So in addition to Mark, we also have Amber Ortega available for your questions this evening. She's also an air resource advisor. So if you have questions about smoke, which we guess that you do, we've got two for you guys. Next up is going to be Brandon Fisher, our fire behavior analyst, to walk you through a little bit of the conditions and what he's seeing on the ground.
Good evening. Sorry. Just was looking out in the parking lot, and I just kind of want to, I'm from South Dakota, and I want to give a shout out to anyone who's a volunteer. For us, I'm a Forest Service employee, and we really can't do it without the volunteers. So thank you for everyone who volunteers their time. I appreciate it. So just to set up just a little bit of what we got going on currently, I kind of want to go back in the past. So the discovery date was July 28th, just down here between Spring Creek and Stoner Creek. And then so the purple, that's showing the progression for the first, it goes till about the 7th. So between the 4th and 5th, the temperatures and relative humidities pretty much were at their utmost extreme for this area. Especially due to, obviously, you guys have been here. You haven't had the monsoons, which you typically do for this time of year. So it's setting up for extremely dry field conditions. So with this date in particular, we had west winds that were coming across. So with these field conditions, Joel was talking about it. It's the main carrier is those large diameters getting into those conifer stands. So anything that's hitting pretty much going into the aspen stands, just real mellow fire, still moving around because everything is so darn dry. But this right here, west wind, that was the first big plume that kind of came up on the 4th and 5th. And then what happened is there was a wind shift. So that's where it jumped. I mean, it's really hard to see. But the 10th and 11th, that's where the big acreage kind of happened. So that was over 3,000 acres. And what's with that, with all the wind, slope, and alignment, that's kind of the big key factors that we look at for fire behavior for large fire development. So what happened, wind, northwest, lined up with the drainage, spotted across Spring Creek, and then just kept on running itself up on top of that ridge. And then from there, we had a predominantly west wind, and it kind of just swirled itself around. Stoner proved itself. And so far right now, it's holding pretty good. There is a couple areas that were spots from the initial blowout. They've been monitored. They've been looked at, like what Joel was talking about. Not doing a whole lot right there. But as we go along, so with all the hard work that Joel and his people in operations have been doing, anything that's coming on this kind of northwestern side, they're getting a lot of hard work done there. So real low fire behavior, just smoldering, creeping, lots of presence there. And the same thing on the southeastern corner. So that's the question of these two areas then. So as the fire does start to move down Stoner Creek, as the Area Resource Advisor was saying, that plume that was coming up this morning was right out of Stoner Creek. So with this, we're having kind of, with it being so steep and mixed conifer sand, especially on the western side of this, we're getting rolling material that's getting down on the bottom of the hill, igniting fuels, running back up, starting more fires, coming back down, rolling material, and the process just keeps on happening over and over and over again. So this will keep on chunking its way, moving down slope, closer and closer to our values at risk. The time frame on that, I mean, that's the question. I mean, we're all hoping for rain, right? So we're currently going through those evaluations, looking at different models and seeing what the fire can actually do. Like I said, all the hard work that they're doing, they're trying to make this footprint as small as possible. So the main concentration of the smoke that you're going to see up on the hill, will it be like what it was, previous on the 10th and 11th and making those runs? No. Historically, my counterpart, Brian, he's been here before. We've done a lot of investigation on the previous fires, and they just, this late in the season, it's 10,000 feet. I mean, making those impressive runs, it's going to be a feat in order to do that. Will there still be, production of smoke and, continue to come down? Yes, there sure will be, just because we can't get the folks in place there. So same thing is coming up here on the north end as well. It's stuck down in that Stoner. Hopefully it'll just stay parked there, but there's lots of grounds going to the north, before it does even try to, hopefully not to reach anything on the 38 corridor at all. So that's kind of what we're seeing are these two areas of concern. The main blast with the dry fuel conditions that we have, that happened before like I said, on the 10th and the 11th. With what we're doing and the hard work that these folks are doing, it's just these big, huge runs that we've been seeing. It's really, really unlikely to see anything out there. And the presence of us will always be out there. So, hopefully we can get a wrangle on this and, get ready for winter and get your skis out. So, yeah, like I said, we'll be around afterwards. Like I said, I've been around for a while, and these droughts, they just linger and linger and linger. And you just hope for rain, and we're hoping the same darn thing. So we want to go home too, But so yeah, we'll be around. Brian, we'll be around as well, my counterpart. If you got any questions afterwards. Actually, I'm sorry, completely missed like two things. Okay. So yeah, first slide. This will explain a little bit. Boy, there's a brain fart there. Okay, you got the next slides though? Okay, so this is the first kind of a couple 100 acres aerial view of the thing. So as you can see, this is what burnt out initially. And then you can see all the fuels, available fuels over here on the kind of bottom of the picture. So this was directly with the west wind going up Stoner. So wind slope alignment just kept on pushing it up drainage. Then next slide. So this was the scary one, right? So this is where it jumped Spring Creek, and it just kept on running and running and running. But this is where we're at right now. Nice flat terrain, something that we can get at. You can see the fuels are just definitely not as continuous either, right? So that gives us the opportunity. So the big blast of this thing, it's taken out of her, and especially, like I said, with the efforts that everyone's doing. So, and then the next slide then is this is showing the fire activity that we're seeing kind of on the upper end of Stoner Creek as it's coming down along. So you see a bunch of aspen that's still in there. So it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't want to burn in the aspen at all. It's just trying to get into these mixed conifer stands. So it'll make its pulses, single tree torching, maybe a little bit of a spotting, short range spotting, but it comes up on this ridge as you can see here, and then the west wind just bends it right over. So great opportunity for us to just kind of keep it in check, keep it in Stoner Creek. not coming down off the hill. So this will keep on producing. Like I said, it's steep. Like, it looks flat, but man, I wouldn't want to be up there at all. So torch up, rolling material, ignite fuel below, and like I said, it's just a continual cycle as this thing kind of moves along down Stoner Creek. So sorry, I missed the pictures completely, but all right, that's all I got. Questions afterwards, we'll be here. Thanks.
Thank you, Brandon. And so we've covered where we were, where we are, what's happening, and now we have Emergency Manager Keith Kiesling to let you folks know what you can do about it. So, Emergency Manager from Dolores County. Thank you, sir.
Hi, everybody. Keith Kiesling, Emergency Manager, Dolores County. I was going to be kind of longish, but apparently we have a search and rescue, and I need to get to that. So I'm going to tell you a couple of things real quick. Can I have my little slide? Or not? Anyway, the main thing I wanted to talk to you about was Dolores County has what's called a Ready, Set, Go for forest fires. But there's a little bit of confusion. I like to think of ready as normal. Normal is you should always be ready. You should always know where your documents are. You should always have, a kind of go kit. I'm lucky. I always have a go kit with search and rescue. We just grab the bag and go, and all my family's on search and rescue. So, but, you want to make sure that you have, you know where your important documents are. I mean, I have for some reason like to put my titles for my cars in my sock drawer. My wife doesn't understand why, but they don't go with. So basically, what we're saying is, just make sure you've got all this stuff in a location. Know where your medications are. Know what you would need to take. Have a bag with an extra pair of socks and underwear in it. We're not saying that you're in a huge amount of danger right now. What I'm saying is now's the time you should be ready. Now's the time you should look at your house and see, maybe I could move that big pile of wood up against the house, away from the house. At 7 o'clock tonight, we're going to issue and state that all of Road 38 is going to ready status. And I wanted to be here tonight. We kind of worked this out that way so that we could kind of explain that ready isn't something to be scared about. Ready is something to allow you to prepare. And I was going to be in the back room and help you with a whole bunch of other stuff. Depends upon how this rescue goes in the next few minutes, but we will do everything we can. I want to make sure that we get as many of you signed up to our emergency alerts for Dolores County. And also, not that you just sign up for them, but that we get you geocoded, because addresses don't work well here. I'm not sure if you knew that. What I have to do is I can go in, if you're already signed up for the alerts, and geocode you with the coordinates of where your house is. So that way, if we send out emergency messaging, it knows where you're at. There's a bunch of different ways that we'll reach you. Either geofencing, it'll call every cell phone in an area. It can call your home phone, send out email, that kind of thing. We just like to make sure that everything's going the way that can be. If nothing else, and I get tied up in this, I will make sure that everybody here can have my number. You can call me anytime. One other thing. Okay. Sorry. They're texting me about it. Sheriff Wilson wanted to be here tonight, but he had a family emergency. So he sent me this to read. I was going to paraphrase, and then I went, oh my gosh, that could turn out really bad if I said the wrong thing. So anyway, this is from Sheriff Wilson. I don't sound any more authoritative when I'm him. So as certain, and I have to take these off. As certain areas and locations are upgraded and downgraded, do not let your guard down. Wildfires can change in minutes, and this fire remains very active in Dolores County. Stay vigilant, stay aware, continue monitoring official updates, and be prepared to act quickly if conditions change. Even as statuses change, we encourage everyone to keep supporting each other and looking out for your neighbors. Which reminded me of one more thing. In the event that evacuation would happen to happen, and you or your family might be one of the people that need help evacuating, make sure to call the Dolores County Sheriff's Office or Dolores County Office of Emergency Management. We put you on the map so that we know that you would need additional help in the event of an evacuation so that we can send additional people. And those would probably be your wonderful West Fork fire guys who started years ago with a little twinkle in their eye and then made this thing. So anyway, it's pretty cool. And I'm glad to see a lot of you here tonight. It's a great thing. And I'm going to go now. So.
Thank you, Keith. And one of the most important things when we're on these incidents is teamwork. And so while Mr. Kiesling is dealing with a very important thing, just know that many of us have prepared for evacuations and can answer those questions for you. So a lot of us in this room who are working on the fire, we live in the American West. We have our ready bags, and we can help answer those questions for you. So we're here for you, and we'll help cover Keith as he's taking care of that. So last up here with closing remarks is our Incident Commander, Justin Conrad.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Justin Conrad, Incident Commander, Rocky Mountain Area Team 1. Whenever we get on a fire, small, long-term like this one, our number one priority is always firefighter and public safety. So we've had, as Joel stated earlier, we've had a lot of people on the ground, a lot of people looking for some solutions, looking for places where we could safely put firefighters. And as he talked about on that northeast side, man, we're not finding that place where we can safely engage the fire on that corner. So firefighter and public safety being number one. With that, we look at a lot of risk management. Where can we be most effective? Where do we have that highest probability of success? And so, as Joel stated, that's why we're coming out to 38. So that'll give us the best opportunity and the best chances to be able to grab an edge on this fire. So I just wanted to recap that right quick. There's a lot of complexities out there with the terrain, with the fuels. One of the firefighters said that trees are falling frequently. That's a scary place to be for anybody. So that's why we're looking at doing what we're doing. So just wanted to recap that. And a couple other things is thank you. Thank you to all of you for supporting us through this. As Joel said, this is going to be here with us for a while, and we know that. Often we roll into small communities just like this. More often than not, we're in small communities just like this. And we want to try to be as least impactful as possible to all of you. I know there's a lot of trucks driving up and down the road. If anybody has any problems with seeing our vehicles speeding, please let us know. We're trying, again, to be as respectful as possible. So thank you to all of you for all of your support. Thank you to the county for everything they've done for us. Also, thanks Chief Tooby, as well as West Fork Fire Department, for allowing us to set up here and give you all this information tonight. With that, thank you so much.
Thank you, Commander. As Emergency Manager Keith Kiesling heads out to do his search and rescue, we wanted to introduce one of our liaison officers, Brian Banks. If you wanted to sign up with Keith, Brian can take your information and transfer that on. Keith is in contact with us daily, so we'll make sure that he gets that information, so please pass that along. One last thing, too, before we conclude. These are the fire information cards that we have for you at the back of the room. This includes those updates for you. This will conclude our formal presentation for the evening. Those of you viewing online, thank you for participating. Please send us your questions. We're happy to answer those for you. For those of you in the room, if we've got green green pants or brown pants on and a black shirt or a tan shirt, we're here for you until the end of your questions. We have representatives from San Juan National Forest, from the incident management team, from Dolores County, and we will stick around until every single one of your questions is answered. Thank you all for joining us. Have a wonderful evening.